What's up, everybody? It's Legal Tender. I'm back in the building. I'm back in the vote. Pulled out some notes to make a new video. As always, I want to start off by thanking everybody for supporting the channel. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I have been getting a bunch of support. So I really do mean it, and I'm really appreciative. So thank you. If you're a fan of Newsmatics, if you're a fan of paper currency, if you're just getting into the hobby of Newsmatics, stay rocking with me, stay rocking with the channel. Every Tuesday is Legal Tender Tuesday, and I'll be making a new episode every week speaking about something new, different, or interesting within the realm of Newsmatics. If you have any questions, comments, or input, put it down in the comment section. I read everything and I respond back as soon as possible. And throughout this episode, if I say something that is off or a little different from what you know, let me know via the comments. I will go back, hit the books, and make sure that I have the right information moving forward. All right, with that being said, let's get into today's episode. All right, so the notes that I pulled out today are from a completed set. And these are the notes that I pulled out. I got 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. All right, so like I said, I got 3 notes. And with just these 3 notes right here, you can have a completed set. And these notes here are called web notes. Now, as you can see, $1 denomination, and web notes are Federal Reserve notes. As always, you can tell the currency type up top, and Federal Reserve notes have green treasury, green serial numbers and green treasury seals. So with just $3, you too can have a completed set of web notes. Now, I did an episode about web notes on a previous episode. So if you want to know a little bit more about web notes, go hit that up. But on this one, I'm gonna just get into the meat and potatoes of it. So, all right, this is what I got. Got some web notes, right? And these notes were only printed in, it was only 3 series printed, 3 series years. Web notes are experimental notes that the Department of the Treasury came up with. And the Department of the Treasury decided to conduct an experiment from the year 1992 until 1996. And the purpose of that experiment was to try to figure out a quicker and more cost-efficient way to produce U.S. currency. And so what they did is they came up with the web notes. Now, there are 2 ways to print U.S. currency. You have the traditional way, which is intaglio printing. And I'll speak a little bit about that in a minute. Then you have web notes. So to make a web note, you're going to need a web press machine. And the best way to describe a web press machine is, I'm going to just do what everyone else says. Whenever they speak about a web press machine, they always immediately go to the imagery of a newspaper machine. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right now with this image. So a web press machine is used to produce high volume, high quality content. So 9 times out of 10, it's for a magazine or a newspaper. But between the years of 1992 and 1996, it was used to produce U.S. currency. So what they did was, U.S. currency is only printed on a certain type of paper. So they got a giant spool of that paper and they ran it through this machine, and the imagery was able to be pressed on this paper in one run. Now, that's how you do a web press. The other way of printing U.S. currency is called intaglio style of printing. Now, the intaglio style of printing, the difference between the two, well, it's a couple different differences. There's a couple discrepancies between, there are a few things that differentiate web press from intaglio printing. First off, the type of paper. Now, even though it's the same paper, the method and how the paper is used is completely different, because intaglio printing is used on sheets of paper, not one giant spool. And also, they have plates. So what they do is they get a plate, and within that plate, they etch in the image and everything that they want to appear on paper. So once they etch that into the plate, they cover the plate with ink, and then they place the paper on top of the plate, press that down, and then the ink from the plate rises into the paper. I think I got that correct. I'm pretty sure I do. So now when you are doing intaglio type of printing, it takes 3 printing processes to make a note. They do the back first because it consumes the most ink with all the color and designs and things like that. So they do the back first, the reverse. Then they let the note chill for 72 hours and dry, air out the note. Then they do the front of the note, let it chill for 72 hours. And then they do the serial number and the treasury seal last. And that is how you make a note with using the intaglio style of printing. But when you do a weld press note, the front, the reverse, and the obverse are both printed at the exact same time. So those are some of the differences between intaglio printing and weld press. Intaglio is sheet fed. You need a plate with ink. They press that down so that the ink raises into the paper, and that is how you get the that raised ink as an added security feature with intaglio printing. Also, they do 32 or up to 50 notes per sheet, and you can have 80,000 sheets in 1 hour. With a weld press, since it's on one continuous spool of paper, both obverse and reverse is printed at the exact same time. So there's no 72-hour drying period. So the entirety front and back of that note is done in one go through, like one printing process. And 96 notes can be produced in one pass for a total of over 10,000 notes. 10,000 sheets in 35 minutes. So those are some of the differences between intaglio and weld press notes. So now, this is how you tell the difference between a weld note and a intaglio printed note. All right, so first off, there were only 3 series of weld notes that was printed. All right, so going to the series year, we got series year 1988A, 1993, and series year 1995. Now, even though the experiment was conducted between the years of 1992 and 1996, remember that the series year doesn't reflect the year that the note was printed. It reflects the year that the image was approved for that note or for that design. Something else. So weld notes were only printed in Washington, D.C. at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing facility in Washington, D.C. There are 2 locations that print U.S. currency. The facility in Washington, D.C., and then you have a facility in Dallas, Fort Worth. Weld notes were only printed in D.C., and this is how you tell the difference. Now, Let me zoom in a little bit. All right, the note up top in red is a whelp note, and the one in blue, that's a regular note. All right, so if with whelp notes being printed in DC, you will only see a standalone image right there. It would be only one numeral right there. Down here, since the note was printed at Fort Worth, it'll have an FW, the abbreviation for Fort Worth, along with that number. So that's one way to identify. Another way to identify that the note was printed in either Fort Worth or in DC is that if you go over here to the left, there's a plate position identifier right here on the left hand side. Now, like I said, it's plates that print and mark the placement of this bill on that sheet for that integral style of printing. With a weld press note, since it's on one spool, there is no individual placement to where this note can be identified at. That sounds kind of weird, but I got some more images and hopefully it'll make sense in a second. So now that's on the front. On the back, you have one standalone number up top, and that right there identifies that this is a whelp note. But at the bottom, you have another back plate position identifier right there. So long story less long, if there is a numeral or a number at the bottom beneath the E, it's a regular note. If there is no number at the bottom, but the number is above the E on the reverse, it's a whelp note. Now they say that those are the two easiest ways to identify whelp notes, but I got another way to identify whelp notes, and I think it's a little easier. First thing is, there's only 3 series years of whelp notes: 88, 93, and 95. So the first thing I do when I get a whelp note, or I get a note that I think may be a whelp note, going through a scrap search, I look at the series year. All right, 1995. All right, so that's already a possibility that this could be a whelp note. Then after that, I look right here. See that single long number. There's no FW identifying Fort Worth. And like I said, whelp notes are only made in DC, were only printed in DC. And the last thing I do is I look at the denominations, because whelp notes were only printed in the $1 denomination with 1 of 3 series years, and it has a standalone number right there. Something else you could do. Now this is going to require you having to be a little good with the signature and series year combination. So the series year is 1988, and that has the Treasurer of the United States being Catalina Vasquez Villalpando, and the Secretary of Treasury is Nicholas F. Brady. For 1993, it is Mary Ellen Withrow, and the Secretary of Treasury is Lloyd Bentstein. In 1995 series year is Mary Ellen Withrow and Robert Rubin. So, like I said, Withrow, Rubin, 95. For 93, Valapundo and Bentstein for 1988A. And for 93, Withrow again and Bentstein. The other one was Rubin, my bad. So those I think are the three easiest ways to identify a web note. Look at the series year, look at that standalone number right there, and look at the denomination. If you do those three things right there, boom, and all three line up, you got yourself a web note. Now, what I was saying about Fort Worth and DC, now these are not web notes because the easy way to identify is the series year, 2017A, 2017A. But they both are $1 denominations, both for the same series year. But if we look right here, we got an FW. That's what I meant. That abbreviation FW stands for Fort Worth. And that means that this note was printed in Fort Worth. Now, you got nothing right there. Excuse this glare. There we go. Can you see it? All right. That I doesn't stand for IUL or anything like that. That is the position this note was, because they are positioned A through J, I believe, and then they're number 1 through I forget. If you know, put it down in the comments. Collecting on the cheap, I know you're gonna help me out. AP, I know you're gonna help me out. But that right there is the sole identifier to where you could tell if a note was printed at Fort Worth or if it was printed in DC. If it's DC, you won't find the abbreviation DC. It'll be nothing right there, only the plate position. This right here has the exact same thing. FW for Fort Worth, and F is the plate position identifier. The plate number right there, and right here, plate position. Zooming in, series year, standalone number right there, no plate position right here, the signature combination, and the denomination. That right there is a clear way to identify a web note. And to have a completed set of web notes, you only need 3 bills, all $1 denominations. I think the rarest one I would say would be the very first one, 1988A. But yeah, with just those 3 notes, you too can have a completed set. So there we go for that completed set episode. All right, fun fact. All right, so the fun fact for the day is that the Alexander Hamilton Web Currency Press is the company that supplied the web press machine in Washington, D.C. The reason that the experiment ended and failed is because the machines kept breaking and they could not keep up with the high demand of making those notes. Not in good quality anyway, so they decided to do away with it. All right, that's all we got for this one. Web notes. All right, like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's keep building up Legal Tender Tuesday. And look out for Fast Money Fridays. All right, that's all we got for this one. Until next time, keep it legal, keep it tender. Talk to you soon.